Shalom Aleichem, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Dr. Coker. Thank you very much for joining us from all over the world. And this is the only program, I would at least say so, which talks about your social, economics, and you name it, the topics which are dear and near to your hearts, your policy issues. We talk about this and we analyze it through the biblical lens. That's why we call it Bible Explains It All by Dr. Coker. I am your host, well-informed, well-qualified, and with all the analytical skills only by the grace of God. Dr. Coker is here to analyze today how can we subdue the poverty in America. I can give the suggestion only, but this is up to President Trump, and I would just really deep down in my heart, I'm just requesting President Trump to just subdue the poverty in America. And again, thank you very much for joining us from all over the world, from the beautiful and sunny city of Dallas, Texas. In Dallas, Texas and Fort Worth, if you just see, not probably miles away, probably few miles away, it's just like you may find the poverty, you may find people, homeless people, all over, not all over, probably somewhere in the streets. So why is this that we are living in such a land of abundance and we are still probably witnessing that poverty in America? Number one, why I am calling on President Trump. Off the gate, before even if I start this program, I would just tell you this, that I am no way, fashion, or form anyway saying that the socialism is anyway, fashion, or form is the answer to the poverty in America. First of all, I would just like to say it off the gate. So you guys know I'm not even in the favor to give money to the poor so they can come out of the poverty. We are just bringing those 5 points and we will just talk about those 5 steps how President Trump can pull these people who are stuck in the vicious cycle of poverty, what President Trump can do about it. And why I'm calling on President Trump? That's why, because I believe that the majority of the Christians in the United States of America, they voted for President Trump. And if I would just see the majority of the constituents of President Trump's, they are Christian, and they are really deep down in the heart believe in this notion that the poverty is an issue which a Christian president should take care of. That's why I'm calling on President Trump. Now, when I just say this, so I'll be just sharing a lot of statistics with you this morning, and if you stay with me, you will be just like probably find an ace in this program for even your personal finances or personal economics. You will find an ace in this program. So now when I'm just going to go back and say why I'm talking about the poverty and calling on President Trump. Now if you look at the statistics, the presidential vote by religious affiliations and race in America, you will see in 2016, 58% people, they voted, 58% Protestant Christians voted for President Trump. And 39% voted for Clinton. The same way Catholics, 52% Catholics, they voted for President Trump as compared to 45% voted for Clinton. And if you just keep going on and on, if you see, if President Trump has that kind of constituents, they are voting for President Trump. And I tell you one thing, Jesus Christ, the most important and most pressing issue, if you read from the Old Testament, come to the New Testament, the most pressing issue, which is dear and near to the heart of the Lord Jesus Christ, is poverty. Okay? So now, I'm just going to take you back to the Bible, and I'm just going to come back to all the statistics in America, what's going on in America, if you stay with me. And when I say why poverty is the main pressing issue to the heart of Christ, if you see, first of all, I'm just going to say this, that Christians, they do not believe that somehow just being rich is any way, fashion, or form is any kind of they should feel guilty about it. That's not the case. I mean, if you're just being rich, that's what Bible is talking about, and these are the blessings of God which are flowing from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob to David and all over. And still, if you see, the blessings of the Lord are just like so-called Jewish and Christian country. The blessings of Lord are flowing from there to all over the world. And this is a topic for some another day, and we will talk about this. But today we are talking about the poverty in USA and how to solve it. Now, if you see in Mark chapter 10, verse 21, it said, Jesus looking at him loved him and said to him, you lack one thing, go sell all you have and give to the poor. Now, first of all, this is, I believe, it's very, it's not very well, the way this verse is just like probably from the pulpit, is just like, it's not well defined verse. The reason I'm saying it's not well defined, because when it's saying, Jesus is not saying that you should not be rich in any way, fashion, or form. Jesus is saying that if your heart is in the wealth and you cannot see anything else but wealth, then there is a problem. And the other thing is this, the reason I'm sharing all this verses, because I'm saying the constituents of President Trump, they are Christians and they believe in these verses, and that's why, and if they are really true Christian and they believe in these verses, so that is important for President Trump to act upon it. I'm just going to say, not only say this, I'm just going to say, most of the time, the legacy of the presidents is just like hanging on the numbers of unemployment. If the unemployment numbers are like 5% or probably like 6% for Christian conservatives and the 5% for the 6% for the conservatives and the 5% for the liberals, so then they're saying the president is doing good. I just want to change this into the poverty rate. If the poverty rate is in the single digits, that's what should define the legacy of any sitting Christian president. That's what I'm just saying. Now, the most common duty of any church is remembering the poor. And I'm not saying this, is just Galatians chapter number 2, verse 10. They ask us to remember the poor, the very thing I was eager to do so. I'm not just saying that, I mean, obviously, probably, this is just like in my heart that we are living in the land of abundance where there are mega churches, very beautiful, shiny, big churches, and probably not even a mile away from the church, you may find a homeless person, you may find a person stricken with poverty when people, they're just going in and out of these churches in their Mercedes, and that's what Jesus is calling upon. I mean, do we have to do something on a personal basis? Absolutely, yes. But this morning, I'm just talking about how can we change the policy from the White House. And just like I said before, I don't want to be redundant this morning. I said this, we're just going to present the 5 steps, the economic 5 steps. And those 5 steps, I would just ask President Trump if we just implement from the White House in the policy so we can subdue the poverty. And we're just giving the solution to it. Now, our God is obviously a rich God, okay? And he became poor. It's written in the Bible, it became poor for us so we can be rich, okay? So we are just saying this in the Bible. If you say 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 9, for you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, for your sake he became poor. Now, what it means that he became poor for you and he made you rich, my brother and sister? Does he mean that it's just he made you rich only by spiritually? Yes, he made you rich spiritually. Does it mean that he made you rich by some materialistically? Yes, he made you rich materialistically also. So he made you rich in both ways. Now, the thing is this, we believe, at least, I believe from the bottom of my heart that this country, so-called America, the Constitution is based on the Christian principles. Okay, so now when I just say this, so that's why I say that we are probably materialistically, we are the highest standard of living all over the world. There is no other country but America the higher standard of living. Why I'm just saying it, if you just see the GDP, which is gross domestic product of our country, which is America. So if you see the gross domestic product of our country, which is standing at 18 trillion, the next country which is even as close to this kind of GDP and probably that big is China, which is standing at $10 trillion. So we are way surpassing China in the gross domestic product. By saying gross domestic product, I'm just literally mean, if you do not know probably this economic jargon, I'm talking about the standard of living. And some people, they probably do argue that China probably has, if you have like a $200 cell phone here, the same phone in China is probably like $50. So we are not talking about this, this morning. We are just talking that why in this land of abundance, the people, they are still living in poverty, and why there is so much inequality. Other thing I just want to tell you, our consumption, it is well known that Americans consume far more natural resources and live more lavishly than people from any other country in the world. Meanwhile, Americans account for only 5% of the world's population, but we create half of the globe's solid waste. By just looking at these numbers, so you can see that what kind of wealth and what kind of standard of living we have here in this America. And we can still find the people in our midst. They are hungry, they are homeless, they are probably depressed, they are broken. Why is that? Why can't we take care of these people from our policy issues? And that breaks my heart. And that's exactly what we are talking about this morning. Why in this land of lavish? Now, when you talk about the poverty, it is about the double-digit poverty in America. About 11 point some percent, approximately, people, they are stuck in the poverty cycle. 11 point some percent people. What is going on? This is double digit, for crying out loud. And since 1967, since we started keeping the statistics of the poverty, we never, at least I did not find any statistics, and I may be wrong, so you can correct me this morning. I did not find any statistics anywhere in our heydays, in our bad days, or whatever days, in our gala days, we came out of this vicious cycle of the poverty. And we are still stuck in this like double digits poverty in America. Why? Why is this so? And that's why I'm just sharing all the statistics with you. And now I would just like I said on the top of the hour, the legacy, Mr. President, the legacy, you just being so-called Christian president, your legacy depends upon that. If you just bring, I know that you cannot just get away with the poverty in America. This is just like probably a dream. But still, you cannot just say, that with a magical wand, you still have people living in the poverty. But just being a Christian president, if you can bring that poverty to single digits, and we will just bring this 5 points to you, Mr. President, not this morning, probably the part 2, we'll just bring that, and we can just suggest from the policy issue, just like I said, on the top of the hour, I'm very well qualified, and by the grace of God, so to just bring these issues and to bring this policy issues, and we can suggest accordingly. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about the socialism in any way, fashion, or form, because I believe that socialism definitely can exacerbate poverty, and it always does. Now, you may ask me, how can, I'm just going to tell you in this part 2, how can we come out of it? But your government can do 3 things. Government can spend, your government, they can tax, and they can regulate. These are the 3 things, us in a democratic societies, we just probably elect our governments to go and govern over us, because that's the three things they can do. And we will just stay within the realm of the governing, spending, and the regulation, and we will just like suggest from the biblical principles that how from the biblical principles President Trump can pull these people out of poverty. And this would be, to us, to Christians, that would be the legacy of a Christian president, to bring out of the poverty of this, especially people living in such a vicious cycle of poverty. Now, I think, this is just like our government, but just like for us personally, I would just say, this is our duty also, that we take care of these poor, because it's written in the Bible, Luke chapter 14, verse 13, if you see it saying, but when you give a feast, invite the poor, crippled, lamed, and blind. How many times you see in this lavish Christian parties, you see that we invite those crippled, lame, and blind, so most of these lavish Christian parties, guess what? I'm not calling on, I'm just calling on us also, okay? So we have all these people, they are probably with their suits and ties and the high heel boots and everything. We invite those people. How many times you see Christians, they are inviting those poor and lame and the blind people in their parties? How many times you see in these mega churches, you see people just walking and with their ripped shirts, and they were invited, but they would be just like checked like 3 or 4 times before they will just go to the church, So what's going on? Are we even, this is the topic of some another time. I don't want to just put so many things in one bucket and just like shake up everything and then come up with nothing. So let's stick with that, how President Trump can pull people out of this poverty. Now, if you are a Christian brother, so you should take care of other. Regardless of if these people, these homeless people and the people stuck with poverty, they are Christian or not, just being a Christian, it is our duty, all of our duty, and the Bible says this, I'm not saying this, my word this morning is nothing. Deuteronomy, if you see 15:11, for there will never cease to be poor in the land, therefore I command you, Deuteronomy 15:11, I command you, you shall open wide your hand to your brother, to the needy and to the poor in your land. Okay, so God bless you all, and we will just continue with this topic, Bible Explains It All by Dr. Coker, and we will just talk and we'll just give 5 steps, how these 5 steps President Trump, he can probably pursue these 5 steps and pull these people. And we will just talk through, you name it, we will just talk through the Keynesian economics, we will talk through the supply side economist, we will talk through the classical economist, we can talk through the monetary school of thoughts, and we will just bring all these different economist school of thoughts, and from those principles, from the policy perspective, we can talk about what president, and then we can just analyze all these topics, and we're going to go through the biblical lens, and we can suggest President Trump what can he do. Only all over the world, this is the only program you're watching. We talk the social issues, economic issues, the love issues, any issue. Bible Explains It All. God bless you all. Thank you very much for watching us this morning. God bless you. Bye-bye. Thanks.